Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola Seminoles Sidelines. We're here on Tuesday, post Georgia Tech, pre Boston College, and I am joined by the legend himself, Charles Fishbein. Here to talk a little bit about Florida State recruiting, and then another FSU legend, JP Peterson, is joining us from Tampa, just back from Dublin, Ireland, and we're going to talk.
My Ireland shirt there.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, I should have had you bring one of those back for me.
I should have. Yeah, I should have. Yeah. We ran out of money though.
Yeah.
We left it all at the Temple Bar. Sorry, buddy.
There are a lot of people that ran out of a lot of money in Dublin. It was a good time. I'm sure a lot of people spent a lot of money on Saturday night as well. Yeah. All right, guys. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to start on the recruiting front, Fish. Start with you, and then, of course, I got a couple questions for both you and JP on the recruiting front that a couple of people have asked me. And
get any linebackers today that can start next week?
There's no linebackers in my recruiting forecast, but I do have.
Can we just bring back the old man, Marvin Jones? Just screw the son. Just bring back the old man. I think he would have had about 30 tackles on Saturday.
Yeah, it's amazing. Some of these stats from that were really bad.
It'd be 29 more than Omar Graham. So.
Yes, and I think he played 41 plays, no tackles. Somebody told me this morning, something crazy like that. But yeah, so we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to talk about recruiting. We're going to talk about my Takeaway Tuesday article, and I'm going to run some things by Fish and JP that I put down in Takeaway Tuesday. And you go to the Osceola.com and take a look at that if you'd like. If you're not a subscriber, I believe Bob put it out in front of the paywall. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about college football week number 1, guys. Some really good games. We're going to pick the games. I was going to pick Florida over Miami, and we'll get to the picks later. But then, near seconds before the show started, I read where Mario Cristobal has hired a clock management coach. So it's got me rethinking how I look at that game as a whole. So it's going to take, as we get through the show, I will reformulate how I feel now that
hopefully he hired away FSU's clock management person.
Yeah, a lot of people were all over Mike for the use of clock management in the first half.
Second half. Yeah,
that was interesting. So let's get to it, Fish. All right, what we learned. The first thing coming off recruiting this weekend is I watched the is it American Heritage versus Milton, Georgia High School. So we got to see Zay Thomas, who's committed to Florida State, as a cornerback, play against C.J. Wiley, who is committed to Florida State. And Zay Thomas shut him down, Fish. Not one catch against C.J. Wiley, was supposed to be one of the best receivers in America, shut out by Zay Thomas, which I don't know how you feel about that if you're an FSU fan. I mean, I torn.
I brought this up to you before. I go all the way back to A.J. Green, and he played against Booker T, and he got shut down, and everybody said A.J. Green wasn't that good. Listen, you're evaluating these guys for 2 or 3 years down the road. And when you start to look at these guys in high school, it's a physical talent you're looking at. A lot of them don't have great coaching. Half of them don't know technique. A lot of guys don't know how to run their routes properly. I mean, I went and watched film the other day to help this quarterback out, and they ran 4 hitch routes, and every guy ran further than they were supposed to on the hitch route. The quarterback threw it where he was supposed to. It got picked off because they ran the wrong route. So there's so much that goes into high school. And I think a lot of these guys watch 5-minute highlights and go, oh, this kid's great. Well, there's a reason why a lot of these guys get to college and they don't play right away, because there's a lot for them to learn.
Yeah, well, I was impressed with Zay. Listen, C.J. Wiley plays with a bunch of really good 2 tight ends. Ryan G's committed to Auburn. The other kid, I can't remember his name, is committed to Georgia. He reminds me of Darnell Washington, who used to play for Georgia, now plays for the Bengals, I believe. They got another receiver who's under-recruited but had a great game. So I don't know how many targets C.J. Wiley gets, but I do know Zay Thomas had one hell of a game. And, of course, there's some younger underclassmen that Florida State's recruiting.
So wait a second. You're saying Zay Thomas doesn't remind you of 22 out there?
No, he does not remind me. He does not remind me of FSU number 22.
All right. Yeah. So we got hope.
I'm gonna project him as an upgrade.
I threw
right
you off
now.
there.
You did. Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
wait a second.
Yeah, wait, 22. I was trying to think of 22 on his team. I was like, I don't remember seeing 22.
No.
And I don't know that roster. So yeah,
20. Listen, Zay could have started in Ireland last week. All right, and I don't think he could have done worse.
Well, you know what? They don't tackle in practice. They don't tackle in games. As simple as that.
Wow, ain't that true? Wow.
And, we'll get to more of that later. All right, so back to the recruiting front, Fish. LaDarian Clarity has pushed his commitment date back to September 21st, and Byron Lewis announced on. This is weird to me, Fish. I don't want to know, and I want to know how you feel about it too, JP. So they're having all these ESPN games and CBS Sports Network high school football games and Georgia Public Television, which is great because I love watching high school football on Friday night, and I don't get a chance to go see many FSU recruits because obviously Tallahassee is usually so far away from where these kids play. It's just not convenient. So particularly the Georgia Public Television, I get to see a lot of those kids play, but they're starting to ask these kids recruiting questions in the middle of the game. I know it's probably an old school mentality, but I am totally against asking a high school kid in the middle of the game what you're doing with your recruiting process. They did it to the big-time quarterback, Juju Lewis, or whatever his name is, Fish, that's going to USC or Colorado or wherever the hell he's going. I know he's committed to somebody. But long story short, are you guys on board with media going onto the side? If I was a high school head coach, I would just be – and I know they agree to it, but –
listen, I mean, I used to always ask coaches, hey, do you mind if I talk to the players? I remember me and my friend going to Dr. Phillips' game one year, and it was like 56-0 at halftime. I'm like, I don't want to sit through the second half. So I asked Coach, I think it was Coach Pettis, and I said, hey, do you mind if I go talk to your kids? He's like, nah. I said, I'm not going to go through the whole second half. But you got, I mean, that's another hour of my time to watch them. But the thing is like, I don't think they should do it. I think the coaches on the sideline should put their foot down. It's not right. Listen, you're trying to get the kids to concentrate. I get it. If you could get them at halftime, maybe, or I think it's just best to wait till after the game.
Yeah. Would it be as good as the halftime interview that what's her face did with Haynes King? Did you see that?
No,
I did not see that. What happened?
We're doing a good job putting a hat on hat. Well, what about your offensive line? How are they doing? We're doing a good job putting a hat on a hat. Okay, thanks. Bye. Same exactly.
I totally blow off sideline reporters because I always listen. The best sideline reporter to get off track for 1 second was the Art Shell once. They were like 0-6, and this lady, I think somebody threw it in her ear, and they were like, asked him, what would it be like to go, lose every game during the year, and they're 0-6, and he looked at her like, dude, please tell me you're not this stupid, just like wanted it, like really, you think we're thinking about 0-16, so somebody like JP threw that in the girl's ear, and fucking she was dumb enough to ask it, so.
Yeah. Wow. That was what a bad producer. Well, she was dumb enough to ask it though.
Exactly.
No, I don't like it. And you say they asked permission to do. Of course, what are they going to say? No to CBS Sports and ESPN? No, you can't have access. This type of access. But I do think it's time for the coaches to put their foot down a little bit and just say, okay, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Can't you tape the segment of doing that before the game or after?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Listen, it just takes the kid's focus off his teammates, which is wrong. That's why I'm against it. All right, so get back to my point. Byron Lewis and LaDarian Clarity are both announcing on September 21st. Fish. I tried to find some symmetry in that, meaning were they likely to commit to the same school, and I couldn't put that together because I think it's Miami and Florida State and Georgia for Lewis, and I think it's Ole Miss, Florida State, and potentially UCF for Clarity. So I couldn't put those. The only common denominator is Florida State. Florida State does not seem to be leading for either one of those two, which is why I ask you on September 21st, should Florida State fans be preparing themselves for good news with Clarity and Lewis or bad news?
I think Lewis is going to be in their class. Have felt that all along. He's very tight with Pat Surtain, who coached him. I think the ties to the program, FSU's ability to run the football, this kid's going to see that he fits into what they're doing. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's going to happen. The Clarity kid, they kind of half recruited him, half not. So I'd really like for them to get him in their class. But the one thing is, Pat, with any of these kids, it shouldn't be an NIL issue at this point because they got plenty of money to spend. I mean, we do take it from one house to the next. Like, all right, we got Petty's money. We got a couple of these other guys that decided not to be in the class.
Somebody's going to benefit from
somebody is.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah. And listen, they might need to ask for some refunds after Saturday too. So.
I was one of the jerks that tweeted that out as well.
Yes, I know. That's why I brought it up. That's why I saw it. I
stand by my statement, though. Yes, absolutely.
Well, listen, hey, listen. We're all fans. We all love college football. Obviously, having played, we probably get more frustrated with it, and having followed it closely for just about every day for the rest of our lives, that's when we have gotten done with it. JP, it is. Listen, Pat, there's nothing wrong with having passion. And listen, the great thing about football, and that's why I don't take away Tuesday, what I think this Tuesday will be changed or could be changed or might be changed by what we see on Monday night against Boston College. And every Saturday, regardless of who your favorite teams are, you get a chance to reset the clock and prove yourself and prove your doubters wrong, get better or worse, whatever the case may be. So listen, we may feel very differently about this football team.
I hope so.
So you feel good about Clarity and Lewis, Fish?
I feel a lot better about Lewis. I think Lewis will be in the class. I think Clarity is about a 50-50 shot. I do think that they have to pull some of these kids. So if it is an NIL thing, they're going to have to overpay. They got to get some momentum in recruiting. And these guys are both guys that could come in. You've seen Clarity's film. He's another guy. I mean, he's a guy that I think he could come in as a freshman and get some minutes. I'm not saying start, but he could definitely get some minutes.
Yeah, listen, I thought they were way, way behind in offering Clarity. I loved his tape coming out of his junior year. They didn't offer him to this spring. He's kind of a local kid, being just 2 hours down the road. That's about as local as you can get outside of Tallahassee. I know they had questions on his size, and I do think they overplayed. And why Ole Miss is in the ball game right now, and Washington as well, is because I think they overplayed that they could get him because he grew up a Florida State fan. They thought they could, then Ole Miss comes in and listen. Again, who knows how much of a factor NIL is on any one particular kid's recruitment, but I do think that they've had to kind of go back, take a look at what they're going to do on that front. And I think they also, I think Clarity, and kind of like Max Buchanan, we thought Florida State was going to have him wrapped up, and then he starts getting recruited by some other big-time schools, starts to enjoy the recruiting process a little bit more than we thought he would, or even he thought he would, because I did ask him about that. But yeah, I think it helps Florida State that the kid was, and talking about Clarity here, that he did move that date back, and you gotta hope that you get him on campus either Monday night or for the Memphis game the following week. So which I believe would be the 21st, which is the day he's going to commit. So we'll see how it goes. Listen, Fish, I don't know. The other reason Clarity's recruitment becomes so important is because Jordan Young looks like he is out. Jordan Young is a safety from North Carolina that had Florida State in his top 4 at one time, but he is top 5. He took 5 official visits. He is now down to Clemson, NC State, and Alabama. You've lost out on the Williams kid to UCF, Konabani to Tennessee, Fitzgerald to Miami, and Hanks to Florida, and I think there's another couple kids. So if you don't get Clarity, Fish, where does Florida State go on the DB board?
Oh, it gets further and further down the board. I really, there's not much left. They're gonna have to, go and evaluate some guys that they really weren't looking at. I think Clarity is a must get at this point in their recruiting class. Yeah.
All right. So the latest rumor, we got a text from William, so I'm gonna let you answer this. Guys, I heard that we may be losing one of our defensive tackles to Texas. Is that true? And Fish, that tackle that he is referring to is Myron Charles. What are you hearing on Myron?
you're going to hear these rumors. I mean, anytime you got guys committed that other schools want, you're going to always have to worry about it. I know Odell has a very good relationship with this kid. He committed. He loves Florida State. That's where it's not like this. Florida State did not offer him before those other schools. And a lot of kids get upset with that. He was offered by LSU and Alabama and Texas before Florida State did. And he basically waited. He waited his turn, and then he committed. He was leaning to Florida State all along. So I feel confident they'll keep him in fold. But I remember going back. One coach once told me, he's like, Fish, once they commit, recruiting starts. You have to, get to signing day. So while it's, unsettling a little bit, I do think they're going to keep this kid in fold.
Yeah, well, I hope they do, because they've had a long relationship with him. Obviously, he's one of the best defensive tackles in the country, and a guy they've invested a lot in as far as time and energy-wise. And he's got a great relationship with Odell, so hopefully that'll not get FSU across the line in December. All right, guys. So on that front, you mentioned we're talking about recruiting. Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State head coach, came out last week and said that he didn't want kids, parents, coaches trying to negotiate NIL deals any further once the college football season started. What are you guys' thoughts on Mike Gundy and that particular philosophy?
I mean, I'm for it. I mean, this is all going to the NFL model, and I think we can follow the model in a lot of ways here. Once the contracts are signed, get them done. Very rarely do teams negotiate during the season. It happens, but not to the effect that it's a very public thing, which I think these things would be a little bit more public. I like it as a precedent. I wouldn't mind it as a rule, to be quite honest. And I think we do need to start talking about what these rules are going to look like. And I know that there's a lot of committees that are being put together to decide how this is all going to move forward, and we get some constraints on it. That's needed without question. So yeah, I think that's good. Once the season starts, there's no negotiating. Don't talk about it. We have dead periods for everything. So let's have dead periods for this.
Yeah, I agree with Mike Gundy. I really like the way he is vocal about stuff. He protected one of his players a long time ago with his, man rant. I've always liked him. I think he's a great coach, and he has those kids back. But at the same time, it's true. Like, this needs to end. It's out of control. I get it. The kids deserve to get paid. That's fine. But there's a time and a place. If coaches are going to have to negotiate with these kids during the year, then honestly, the game's done. You may as well just wrap it up. They don't do it in the NFL. They don't do it in any other sports. It's time to, settle this thing down and let's get going forward.
All right. Well, this was a fact or fiction today that John Garcia and the Rivals National Boys did, Fish. So I'm going to ask you this question. The loss to Georgia Tech will impact how well FSU finishes with its 2025 recruiting class.
I say fiction. I don't think losses, unless they're really – this was not a bad loss, first of all. They lost 24-21 to a team that I question, with others as well, that thought there was a possibility of this happening. This team had a lot of replace from last year's team. I think that this is that Norvell and those guys have built relationships. These things aren't just broken down after one game. They've been recruiting these kids for 2 and 3 years at some point. So I'm not really worried about it. I think they just got to keep, doing well this season. Listen, last season was special, and everybody said, "Oh, they're gonna just sign a top 5 class because they finished, 13-0." And really, did it have any impact? No, I don't think, unless you're just a total train wreck. I don't think that these kids really look at wins and losses. These kids all lose on Friday and Saturday nights. And I don't want to take away from that, but it's just reality. It's not like every one of these recruits are recruiting is on an undefeated team every year. A lot of them are on teams that have 3 and 4 losses. So they know that a lot of them, their mentality is, hey, I'm good enough to get Florida State back to 13-0. Their
Exactly.
egos are like, hey, I want to go there and bring them back from if they have a down year. So I don't think it's going to impact them at all.
JP?
I think it's almost position by position. If you're a corner or any defensive player, you think you can start right away at Florida State. Seriously, I mean, you're looking at your position going, I'm better than that guy. I'm better than that guy. Yeah, I could start, and maybe looking at other programs that they're being recruited by, hopefully by Alabama and Georgia, and say, I'm not better than that guy, and I'm not playing until that guy leaves. So I think it could have a positive impact in some ways. But I agree with Fish. Unless you have a train wreck of a season, it really doesn't matter.
All right, so Fish, this was probably more for you, although I know JP has some opinions on how well Florida State recruits Tampa, because we talked about it last year several times. How many ace elite this was a question asked on the board. How many ace elite recruiters does FSU have on staff? And I'm not asking you to mention them by name, but just, I guess it's either yes or no, one or two, or do you want to pass on, kick the question down the road?
Yeah, I think fans get a little too much into this, the whole, guys that are, good recruit. There's a handful of elite guys, just like there's elite players, there's elite coaches, there's elite recruiters. It's a skill set, and some guys are really good at it. I think Florida State has some guys on their staff that are very good recruiters. Some guys are just not great closers. You'll have a guy that's a very good recruiter, but somebody else has to come in and help close the deal on some of those guys. I don't know what the situation is up there, why it seems like they lose out on some of these recruits. I'm not in that war room with these guys, so I can't really tell you that. I do think they have guys that can recruit. They're there's a good chance that they pull in two elite running backs this year. They've got guys like Javion Hilson, who's a big-time recruit. So they are landing guys. I get it. It gets frustrating, but I'm not there to really get in there. I don't know what's going on inside that war room.
All right, fair enough. But
I don't know. I don't know a lot about the recruiting situation. But I know what I was told, and this intel is probably 2 years old, maybe. That from one of the top high schools here in Tampa. I mean, the top, putting out multiple D1s every year, that they weren't even sure if they'd seen the FSU guy on campus, a couple of years ago. That they didn't. There wasn't. That's probably a little strong. There wasn't a strong bond whatsoever with Florida State. There was a feeling that they'd been overlooked and weren't getting enough attention, and they're putting out D1s all over the place. Yeah. But again, this intel's probably 2 years old. I have to get some fresh intel on that.
The disappointing thing about Tampa this year is I believe this is the best year in the last 15 years. And you look at DJ Pickett, who's a 5-star elite. This guy is a guy that's going to be a top 5 pick. He's a Patrick Surtain. He's a Patrick Peterson type cornered safety prospect, and you never even got in the ball game with him. And that's great. I'm sorry, there's no excuse for that. And Norvell, as a coach, he's getting paid a lot. He's the one that's got to answer for that and ask why they're not. Listen, it's one thing you're not landing the kids. It's another that you're not even in the ball game for a lot of them. Dallas Wilson, the kid at Berkeley Prep that me and Dallas Golden, the kid that had a great game against New Orleans. Tampa is loaded this year. I mean, you have to go back to the James Wilder year where it was this loaded, not only in Tampa, but St. Pete and the Polk County areas. Florida State should be – those are the guys that are going to win you national championships. Trust me, when you see those guys that come out of Tampa this year and they go to these programs, whether it's LSU, Alabama, Oregon, wherever they're going, Florida, you're going to see these kids are going to have a big impact, because this is the best year that I remember, not only this year, but next year in Tampa, St. Pete, the areas are surrounding there. It's very good. You haven't seen a year like this, like I said, since Wilder and those guys that came out back then. And you saw the impact those guys had in college.
Sorry, Murphy wanted to join the show.
Murphy needs to recruit Tampa. Are any of these top 5 Tampa guys that got FSU on the list?
No, I don't think they're really in on a lot of these guys, to be honest with you. And that's the disappointing thing about this. I really think that they missed the boat this year.
Do they still have area guys? Are recruiters still doing areas, or are they doing more position?
In the state of Florida, they have an assigned area, but I do think that crosses over where they, hey, if they've identified a linebacker in Tampa, Adam's a lead recruiter, but Randy gets involved type of thing. And at some point they kind of working together or pass him off. But yeah, listen, I agree with you. Dallas Golden was you were up here for the state championship games, Fish, and I told you then I thought he might have been the best football player, regardless of position, out of all those state championship teams, and that included Charles Lester being here. I believe Hilson was here. You had guys like Brady Hard, who's committed to Michigan. I mean, you had a ton of.
I always go back to one thing that Urban Meyer said when he was recruiting a guy. He liked to see those guys that made it to state finals and helped their teams win. Golden, what he did last year, because Norland was a way better football team, and he basically, along with that running back, they put that team on their back. And I liked both of them. I would even have taken the running back as a second back if you get a Lewis. I don't think that kid's a bad back. The kid that was on that team. These are different.
I remember who you're talking about.
These are difference makers. Like, these are guys that get you from that 9-10 win team to playing for national titles and playoff appearances. Tampa's loaded. Tampa's loaded this year. I mean, Dallas Wilson is another one. You go watch that kid play. He's 6'3". He looks good. He's smooth. He looks different. You know, those guys that you see that look like they're college ready now, those are the guys you want to. If there's 10 of them, you want to get 2 or 3 of them. You know?
Yeah, well, he's not physically imposing, but we both like the Jashon Newton kid.
Yeah,
out of Clearwater. I can't remember the high school, but
he had Clearwater Central Catholic. He's another one. Why would you not? This family's had one kid after another that's producing college. Like, all right, say he's a little undersized. The pedigree's there. They're good football players. Sometimes you need a good football player instead of a prospect that they come in and they can't play a lick, you know? So I think Jashon Newton, I would take that kid right now. And I don't think they'd have to pay a whole lot to land him. So.
No, I think he'd like to go to Florida State. I can't remember where he's committed, but he's not committed to
Illinois.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's a guy you can flip. All right, so guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break here from our sponsors, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit of Takeaway Tuesday, little Georgia Tech, moving into Boston College, and then talk about college football week 1. And of course, Dion is the gift that keeps on giving. He's got to open up against a Division I AA school that's really, really good. Yeah. He's tried to shut some people down. He said some things that are interesting. So we'll talk a little bit about some Florida State related things, and ACC related things as it pertains to the first week of college football season. But we will be right back in 71 seconds if I can do the math correctly.
The Backshore. That stretch of fluffy sand just beyond the reach of the salty waves. The place reserved for volleyball nets, cookouts, and the air filled with fun and laughter. Celebrate the Backshore with Backshore Apparel. Grab an amazingly soft and comfy Backshore Apparel beach hoodie to keep you protected from the sun's harmful rays. Or the Backshore revamped trucker hat, a modern twist on a classic favorite. Crafted from moisture-wicking fabrics, ensuring they're lightweight and breathable. Not to mention durable with their unique floating feature. Shop now at BackshoreApparel.com. And right now, FSU fans get 10% off your order with code FSU10. Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com.
All right, welcome back to the Osceola Seminoles Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I am joined by Charles Fishbein and JP Peterson, and we have just spent 30 minutes talking recruiting. Now we're going to talk a little bit about FSU football and a little bit about college football as a whole as it enters the first week in what is a virtual buffet of football, but starting on Thursday afternoon and running through Monday night when LSU and USC play. All right, guys, so let's go back to Florida State and Georgia Tech. I write an article every Tuesday during the season. I'm not much of a I guess, columnist or op-ed guy, but I do write one during the football season. It's called Takeaway Tuesday, and it's kind of the premise of it is, as football fans, we all going into any one game week thinking one thing about our football team, and we come out of that week with our opinions and thoughts on that football team readjusted in some form or fashion. And of course, what I start and how I start my process on Takeaway Tuesday is we do what we call Second Look Sunday or Second Watch Sunday, where we as a staff go back, watch the game, and kind of offer our thoughts to our subscribers on the board in a thread that's called Second Look Sunday. Most of the time, guys, when I go back into Second Look Sunday, I feel much better than I did. And listen, there hadn't been a lot of losses to break down over the last 2+ years. 3 losses in 2 years, 4th loss now in 2 years in a game. This is one of the few games I did not feel better about after watching. I found it hard. You take the first drive of the offensive team and the second drive of the last drive of the game for the offense, Florida State's offense, and in between that, there was virtually nothing that you could get fired up about. We'll talk about the defense in its entirety, but just did either one of you get a chance? I know, Fish, you did. I think you did a Monday morning quarterback. But I'll start with you, JP, since you just got back from Dublin and you were in person. Did you what you watched as you were rewatching the game today jive with what you saw on Saturday Live?
For the most part, because I didn't get too drunk at the game. And we had pretty good seats. I just saw a lot of missed tackles, a lot of bad angles. And by the way, I'm going to give Georgia Tech a lot of credit because they executed their offense tremendously well. Their offensive linemen, Brent Key's an ex-offensive lineman, and they run the damn ball, and they run it really well, and they executed extremely well. Their backs were where they were supposed to be. The blocking schemes were well orchestrated. Was there a little bit of holding here and there? Yes, there was, like on the big run at the beginning of the second half. Lundy gets absolutely bear hugged on the edge. Those are big moments. Those are actual calls that matter. But for the most part, they were just bullied. FSU was bullied at the line of scrimmage, which I thought initially that the tackles weren't great. But then when I looked at the tape and I saw they were being doubled just about every single play. That's hard to do. That means your linebackers got to flow, your defensive ends have to make plays, and your safeties have to come up and make plays. Just hold your ground. I thought they did okay. I thought, and my first blush was they were destroyed, but I thought they were better than on the second look. But the rest of the guys were worse. I'm still, the last drive of the game when it was clearly declared we're going to run it down your throat, we still had 2 safeties 12 yards off the ball. At the last drive of the game. At what point do you say enough is enough? We'll take our chances with the great Haynes King throwing the ball down the field. So defensively, in terms of adjustments, I saw none. And just a lot of bad tackling, a lot of bad angles. And that, like you mentioned it, Pat, when you don't do it in practice, you don't do it in the games. And I don't know. And I see the same thing at the Bucs level. And at least in the NFL, there's, you're trying to protect guys that are making $10 million a year. When you've got, maybe a little bit more depth than players in college, how you're not tackling to the ground some of the time makes no sense to me. By the way, don't we still have tackling dummies in college?
Well, they got these donuts.
Guys.
They got these donuts they chase down and tackle.
Whatever. But wait, don't they have real guys? I mean, remember when we had tackling dummies? Those guys that like to walk
out? Yeah. When you were a scout team member, yeah,
exactly. We don't have any of those guys we can take to the ground.
You got to wonder when they go to 105 scholarships, will they start to tackle a little more, knowing that they'll have more depth to work with? But it's bad. I mean, this has been going on for a few years now, where it's getting worse and worse. Listen, last year's defense was so good that I think Florida State fans got spoiled with that, because it was the closest thing to what we remembered back with the Peter Boulwares and those defenses.
Yeah.
What surprised me in this game, and when I was watching it, and you talk about resetting the offense, the line of scrimmage. FSU never reset the line of scrimmage. You didn't see the Braden Fisk types, the Jared Verse. Jared Verse was very good at setting the edge on run plays and being able to keep guys from just bullying them. Florida State got bullied, and it was on both sides of the ball. They did not. They say games are won or lost in the trenches. This game was won in the trenches. They didn't turn the ball. You look at all the stats. Florida State had more first downs. If I had told you that DJ was going to throw for 70%, that they wouldn't turn it over, they'd have one penalty, everything, all the stats favored Florida State more. I mean, I don't even know if Georgia Tech going into the fourth quarter had like 9 pass attempts. Everything Florida State did to win that game, but they didn't do the things that mattered most, and that's control the line of scrimmage. They were bullied. That's correctable. I think the talent's there to correct it. There's certain guys that on defense, I think they're going to just have to not play and go with younger guys. If that's the case, I'd rather go with the walk-on, honestly, than a couple of the guys. And it's not to knock those guys. You can coach up what we saw on the line of scrimmage. They're going to get after those guys. I think they're going to improve. I think that Odell and that D-line is going to be a lot better in game 2. I think with I don't know how many games Atkins is out, but they really need
3.
Yeah, I mean, that hurts. I mean, you could see the communication. Listen, those guys, you could say, oh, you could just plug somebody in. It doesn't always work that way, especially on the O-line, because those guys communicate. They see things differently. They're used to his voice. That voice wasn't there, and maybe that motivation wasn't there either. But if they improve the O-line and D-line, I think they're going to be a lot better off. If they play like they played the other day, they're going to be in a lot of tight games and lose a lot of tight games because they were not good. I could not believe how many times I saw the O-line guards not getting out, even on pull plays. They didn't block guys. They didn't get body on body and drive guys. There was one play, Robert Scott, I believe, just got annihilated. Just, you can't get beat that bad. You have to have at least a tie, where coaches are fine with that. But I guarantee you, they graded these guys after the game. They were not happy with what they saw up front.
Well, listen,
Fish, do you? And I'll throw it to both of you guys. You think? See, when I see guys getting beat physically, to me, that's not correctable unless they were just not into the game and had no energy, which they didn't look like they did. Which, by the way, reports from Dublin, the guys were out the night before the game, just on the streets, not doing an Irish jig and having a beer, but they were out. But the night before the game, I don't understand that.
Listen, I wasn't as high on the offensive line going into this season as everybody else. Just because you have a lot of starts and a lot of experience doesn't mean you're going to be great. My biggest thing when I watch Florida State on the O-line, they don't look big compared to other teams. They look like they're undersized, especially at the tackle spot. We've talked about this. They recruit a lot of guards to play out at tackle. I really like to see a Simmons out there that's 6'6", 6'7", that's got length, that people don't realize 6'6", 6'7". It looks intimidating when you're out there and you have to get around it compared to somebody that's 6'3". It's just, there's a reason why tackles in the NFL aren't 6'2" and 6'3". It's because they're easier to get around. Length. Florida State doesn't have a lot of length. You look at a Richie Leonard. Leonard's not a lengthy guy. A lot of these guys, Maurice Smith's not a lengthy guy. So these guys, when they have to reach or they got to get out on somebody, you can't have 3 guys inside that are 6'2", 6'3", and have no length. And that's where I see the problem. On the defensive line, I think the biggest issue, and maybe you agree, you need a Jared Verse on the other side of a Patrick Payton, because I think Patrick Payton is not an every down player. I think he's more of a situational player. And you have
he's a pass rusher.
Yeah, and you have the same thing of Marvin Jones. So you have 2 of the same guys now having to play instead of having that strong side DN that can set the edge, that can help you out in the run game.
Point.
And now that guy on the other side is getting single covered. He's probably going against the worst of the 2 tackles. And he has an advantage because he's twitchy. But if you have 2 guys that are 240 pounds and you got to set that edge and set those run plays, that's why you see them getting blown off the ball.
Well, listen, I'm more concerned about what we didn't see from Peyton than what we didn't see from Marvin Jones, because this is Marvin Jones Jr. first time playing as a full-time defensive end with his hand in the ground, and what he got was indoctrinated into major college football. You can grow from that. Now, Patrick Payton was supposed to be Patrick Payton was supposed to be a leader of this defense, supposed to be one of the best players on the defense. And listen, I think that Georgia Tech ran at him because they knew you could run at it.
This as well as I do. Fisk and Verse covered up a lot of things last year with these other guys where they make them look better. That's what great players do. Yeah. They make other guys, they get those guys to play above their talent level.
Just like Jordan Travis, like Joe, Florida State's offensive line getting nominated for the Joe Moore Award last year had as much to do with Jordan Travis bailing them out as it did anything else. This
is a great point you just made. You have two defensive ends that are pass rushers, and they threw 9 passes at some point. I mean,
so they were useless, basically.
Yeah. So when you declare early on in the game, we're going to run it down your throat. Where's the beef? Yeah. Where do we not have anybody on the roster?
Well, listen, you got
30, 240 at defensive end that can come in and set the edge.
Well, you got Sione Lelehi, who's played a ton of football at Oregon State, and take away Tuesday. I put that he's got to get more of the snap distribution between he and Marvin Jones Jr. if they're on the same side has to be a lot more equal. And I'm not sure with all the experience that Sione has that I'm not starting him and then letting Marvin find his way as a major college defensive end.
Pat, what do you think Boston College is going to do? They're going to line up and they're going to run the ball. They're going to have the same game plan. Once people figure you out, listen, you look at Florida State's always had that pass rusher, and they've had that DeMarcus Walker guy that you can have that sets the edge, and then you take a DeMarcus Walker and you kick him inside on pass rush downs. You have to have a 275-pound edge guy now. You can't have these undersized guys on both sides because the tackles you face, all right, and trust me, I've seen Miami's tackles this year. They have a kid that's 6'9", they brought in from JUCO, that is going to annihilate these guys. If they're going to be undersized in Florida State, that's the route they're going to go. You better be ahead in a lot of games where these guys could just pin their ears back. Right. But if they're in close games, which I think they're going to be in a lot of close games, that's advantage other team. They're going to wear these guys out.
I agree. The defensive line looks small, and they were just tossed around and sealed so easily. Taking you coming outside and just opening up huge lanes, like just leaving their gaps, and that's what happens with undersized players. Once they get those tackles get their hands on you, you're toast. You're moved 3 yards, and somebody's gashing you.
And as bad as they were, and to your point, JP, they were getting double team a lot. But as bad as the two starters, Farmer and Jackson, were getting blown off the ball, we never saw Tommy Durajay in the game. We never saw KJ Sampson in the game. They got a ton of reps in camp. I don't know whether it was an injury thing, illness thing, discipline thing, but it stood out to me that the two guys that we thought were going to be the primary backups coming out of camp did not play a snap. And you got Grady Kelly, who played about 5 snaps and certainly did not have a better camp, in my opinion, than those other two kids.
Who's the other kid? Lyons?
Lyons played hard.
Yeah, he played hard.
Lyons made some plays in the game, but I don't remember. I think I saw KJ Sampson maybe once or twice in the game. They did not go through their depth, and that's the one thing that, coming into this season, listen, what made those guys last year so good was they were rolling guys in behind them constantly. Yeah. You didn't see that in this game. I've always said, I believe this coaching staff's really good. I think Norvell, I questioned when they hired him, and me and Pat, there was other guys. I think Norvell's one of the top 5 coaches in college football. Guys make mistakes, but where you go wrong is personnel. And if you don't have the guys that can do it, coaches don't look as good. I'm not saying you can't coach guys up, but they did not look like they did last year. When we left that LSU game last year, I was the one that came on this show, and I was like, I think FSU could play for the title. And Pat thought I was a little goofy and I had too much to drink. But this team I saw is a team that I think you're going to see kind of a similar team week in and week out, where it's going to be the fans are going to be a little uncomfortable each week. They're going to win more of these games than they lose, but it's going to be tougher than it was last year, where they could have a D game last year. You saw it in the Boston College game. Yeah. You saw it during the season where they could have a D game and then a Keon or a Benson could bail them out. They don't have that margin of error this year. They just don't. It's
the margin of error is certainly smaller. But listen, I'm not going to sit here and say they're a talentless football team. Listen,
we're not saying that.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying
but this particular game, they were out physical, they were out mentally prepared, and they were out schemed. that's on the coaches. That's not on the players.
Yeah.
But if you put Benz,
we can say it was a close game, and it was a close game because of Ryan Fitzgerald and two 50-yard plus field goals, which you're not going to get every week. That's good. But yeah, I get it.
But the only thing I'm saying is if you have like a Trey Benson in this game, all right, with that ability to break a long run, all it takes is one to change the game. You saw it with Dalvin. How many times when Dalvin played, they weren't playing well.
Games.
And he took over a game.
Right.
I just didn't see that in Roydell Williams, and I didn't see it. The only kid that showed me twitch was Toafili and Oli and the Lucas kid.
Then you only give Lucas the ball 3 times in the game.
The two other running backs, honestly, and it's not a knock, they look like just guys. They did not. There was nothing about them that I said, "Oh, these guys are going to play at the next level."
I don't think the running back rotation necessarily had an impact on the loss, but they did play 5 running backs, including Jalen Lucas, Keziah Holmes, Cam Davis. You mentioned Toafili and Roydell. I would have liked to have seen them maybe get one or two of those guys hot. Now, the one guy that was creating running room for himself when there was none there was Jalen Lucas. You go back and watch that jet sweep where they missed the 2 reach blocks on the outside. He has to cut it back inside and gains about 7 or 8 yards. I think he did it on his first carry. But I was kind of baffled that they did not play him more and get the ball in his hands more. I don't think we saw him from the line of scrimmage in the second half. I think he returned a kick or lined up to return a kick. But so I was a little bit surprised by that. Now, I don't think it had anything. Listen, it means one of 2 things. Either they're going to play everybody, keep everybody happy, or they haven't identified who the number 1 guy is at running back. And I'm kind of surprised at that because it would seem to me that Lawrence Toafili's been around here and you saw what he did with the touchdown run to start the game. So I was a little bit surprised by that. Were you a little bit surprised by the rotation at running back?
Yeah, I was. I would have said Teofili and Lucas get more touches. I mean, those guys are special. The whole offensive scheme seemed kind of weird to me anyway. I thought Mike went way too late to let DJ throw the ball down the field. If you're going to play him, you got to play him. And clearly, Tech rolled the safeties up. There was room to have throws, and 11 of his first 12 throws were 5 yards or under. It's good coaching staffs, and I think Georgia Tech and Brett Key did a great job. They're going to figure that out. So you got to throw the ball down the field. Now DJ did miss a few throws. There's no question about that. But I was perplexed by the fact that they didn't, especially in the second half, come out and let him rip it a little bit more.
But JP, he was clutch on that final drive.
Oh God, yes, he was.
2 4th-down throws.
No, I'm not bitching about DJ. I'm bitching about Norvell. He should have let him throw the ball down the field.
There's no. It just listen. He had Travis for so long, and there's a comfort level. When you have that trust level between you and a coach, you've seen it whether it's a pro or college level. All right, it's easier to call plays when DJ misses that post corner route and the receiver's wide open. As a play caller, you're like, man, he just missed. That was money. Or there was another play right across the middle of the field. If he just looks straight ahead and hits the guy, it's a touchdown. When you miss those plays as a play caller, you start to pull back. And it's most coaches do that. It's the ones that you hope that Mike learns from this, and I think he will. But I'm that's the one thing I'm not worried about. I feel like he will get this right.
They'll adjust to that. That stuff. Coaches have a bad game. Players have bad games. I thought Mike had one of his worst games managing. I thought at the end of it was pretty clear at the end of the game they were going to run the ball down our throat. We didn't really adjust defensively, and Mike didn't use his timeouts very wisely. You knew, listen, they were going to score. They were going to score. The defense wasn't stopping anybody. Nope. You had to use those timeouts way earlier to preserve more time. They weren't going to run out of time. They had plenty of time. And you needed to stop the clock in meaningful moments, and they did not do that. And I thought that was huge because if the Noles get the ball back, I think they score. Whether it's a field goal with Fitzgerald or a touchdown to win the game, you had to get the ball back in some way. You just letting them bleed the clock was a loser's. That was not going to happen.
Yeah, I think they would have had to have significant time on the clock to score because I don't think Georgia Tech would. They were blitz heavy that last drive. I mean, they were bringing the long pass to Benson on 4th and 8. it cleared open because they brought the safety from that side. They would have played more coverage on the next drive. I think they would have had to have substantial try.
But you got to get the ball back.
You
got to get the ball back. And they, whether you let them score or whatever, people do that these days. Sometimes your defense is just so bad, you got to play that arena football game. Get the ball back.
And realize this is the first time in a while Mike's been in this situation.
Yeah.
It's a new it really is a new team. I don't think people
40
realize
new guys.
It is a lot of news. And it becomes again a comfort level. You'll see it. I think as the season goes on and progresses, you'll see him get more and more confident in this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But there's a comfort level, and I think a lot of the things have to start clicking, and they will. I have a little more faith that this thing will get turned around, especially on offense. Defense, I think there's some personnel guys that just can't play. If they play, you're in trouble. You can scheme around certain things. You can't scheme around bad players. It's just you can't.
Names here, Fish. What are we doing?
I'll do two.
Omar Graham and Devontae. Listen, I don't want to knock them because Devontae. The one thing about Devontae,
they're getting paid now, Fish. You can take your shots.
Listen,
there's a lot of that on the boards this week, boys.
But listen, Omar Graham. When Omar Graham came out of high school, the one thing you could count on, he was a very smart and an instinctual player. That was a disappointing thing with him the other day. I did not feel like he made the right read. Like he seemed to always be out of position.
Yeah.
Instincts can help you. The one advantage he had for being undersized and not the fastest guy in high school was that he was instinctual. He got there faster than some guys that usually are a 4 or 5 guy because of instincts. If you know where to go and you can put yourself, he looked lost. And that's a concern. When a guy's that lost, can you fix him? And Devontae Brown honestly looked like Corey Mangum. And I hate to knock him, but it's been a long time. I thought after Corey retired, they should have never put somebody in 22 again. I started having flashbacks to 22 and watching him out there because it was brutal.
Yeah, I think Fish is right. I think they go to Nicholson and Riley, the main linebackers. Neither one of them you're going to play 4. Throw Lundy in there, but I think Lundy, Riley, Nicholson have to be your guys. Well, that's all they got, JP. I mean,
dude, Nicholson broke through on that play in the first quarter. None of the other players on defense made that play. He made it. He undercut the receiver that was trying to block him. He made the play behind the line of scrimmage. You want to see that. If that kid is, he looks like he belongs out there. He's
gonna make mistakes, but you got to live and die with him. I mean, because at least you're gonna got a fast guy on the field. He may not make the same mistake twice. That's what you got to hope. But listen, when they lined up in that 4-3 defense and he was over there as a Sam linebacker, he wasn't afraid to take on that damn tight end Jackson Halls, who had a great day against the defensive ends. I thought Daniel Lyons, a couple guys were the bright spots. And listen, I know Hussey and Brown basically 50-50 on rep count, but I agree with you. I think Hussey's got to be your guy again.
Hussey and Edwin Joseph, and it's not just the one play Joseph made on the special teams. The kid's got dog in him. We saw it in high school. You saw it last year as a freshman. He doesn't mind sticking his face mask in there. He's the one guy that is more old school, like a Mickey Andrews DB, that you can play him at safety. You can play him in the slot. He just wants to go out there and hit somebody.
Yeah.
And they need those guys. You can't have guys. Listen, the worst thing you could have is an uninstinctual player and a guy that doesn't want to hit anybody. It's a bad combination. Yes. You're going to end up with what you saw with 22 on the ground, grabbing ankles. You don't want an ankle grabber, and that's what we had a lot of on Saturday.
Yeah. Listen, I agree with Fish. I think JP agrees with it too. I think the offense will get better. I don't know how high its ceiling is relative to last year's offense. I don't think it'll be that good, but I do think Mike will find his way with this offense. The offensive line's got to play better. If they're not going to play better in the run game, you got to be more aggressive with your passing game. I was a little bit surprised that we didn't see more from Kyle Morlock in the passing game. Mm-hmm. It seemed like he had a great camp. And listen, if you're not going to throw it to Malik and Jaylen Brown, they got great straight line speed. So run them out, clear out the middle, and let Morlock and the running backs get underneath. So I was a little bit surprised by that, but I do think that I think the team as a total will get better because I don't think they're going to come out with the same lack of physicality. I would think that today's practice would probably take care of that. As Kelly Lowry, who used to be a quarterback at Florida State, mentioned on the comments section, and he mentioned that before he was a starting quarterback, he used to be a tackling dummy on the scout team.
Well,
not back in those days you were.
Listen, it's trickled down to the high school level. Like my son's been practicing on JV, and they do not hit the quarterbacks at all. Like literally, I don't know how these kids like they play on Thursday. They literally do not, and it's at every high school now. They do not allow you to hit it was the same way at his other school, Calvary Christian. They say do not hit the quarterback. You can't touch them, and it's like, all right, well, you got to hit them sooner or later because they got to find out if they can. And I mean, one kid got hurt the other day. I'm still trying to figure out how he got hurt and blew his arm out because nobody touched him. I mean, I've never seen a guy he pulled
Tommy John.
Oh my God.
All right, so guys, this is interesting, and of course we're going to wrap it up on the negative side of things and talk about a couple other things before we get into college football. But all right, so this is interesting, and I'm not sure if I'm right because I do not have a crack team of researchers like ESPN and Fox and CBS Sports. But if I'm right, and I would like to think that I am, FSU will still be the 10th ranked team in the country heading into the Boston College game. Because I believe the AP and coaches poll does not come out, an updated version does not come out until next Tuesday. Is FSU making history? Are they the first team to be ranked in the top 10 without a win in the history of college football?
Or 0-1? I don't know.
We've got to find that out.
I'm sure there's a Notre Dame team that is like started 0-3 that was still ranked number 1. So trust me, like it's happened before.
Okay, so I want to get y'all's thoughts.
Notre Dame. I'll say Notre Dame. I think
I could care less about the rankings right now.
I'm just saying it's a weird anomaly. It's an anomaly. And
I think we had some other wiseacre. I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on this show.
Yes, we are. It's YouTube. Just no F-bombs. We're trying to stay away from the F-bombs. We're not Pat McAfee after all.
We're the first. Maybe this is on my show. We're the first team to be dead last 17th in the ACC. Yeah, this is true. We are in 17th.
I have shocked you.
We're in 17th place in ACC in the top 10 in college football. Yeah. It's already a crazy football season, guys. It's already a crazy football. All right, so banking on Boston was part of my takeaway Tuesday.
I don't know where we are in the Pacific division of the ACC, but I don't think we're on top.
We're actually asking to move over there.
We need to go to the Pacific Division.
Cal, SMU, especially after what I saw from SMU on Saturday night.
If we join the Pac-12, at worst we're 3.
Their offensive line got knocked around by Nevada. That was interesting to see. I'm not near as worried about the SMU game as I was heading into the season. They got knocked around by Nevada bad. Got lucky to win that ball game. All right, so I'm already starting to get texts and calls about Florida State's going to blow out Boston College on Monday night, a 17-point favorite. Listen, you've got Thomas Castellanos back, Kai Robichaud back, Trayshawn Ward transferred in. And by the way, whether you like him or his personality or not, Bill O'Brien's a pretty damn good football coach. And by the way, he coached Brent Key at Georgia Tech. So they're going to be switching notes and talking.
Of course,
and then Kelly Riley, who's also a part-time meteorologist, says we're going to get 60 or 70% chance of rain on Monday night. I think this game is definitely going to be within the margin of the spread, and I think this is going to be closer than expected. Listen, between what they return on offense, what the unknown that Bill O'Brien's going to bring on the offensive side of the ball, and obviously we don't know what they're going to do on defense. I think that this is going to be another close game. You guys think you think the fans that are saying this is going to be a blowout, right or wrong?
No, and that's wrong. Last year's defense couldn't catch Castellanos and tackle him. What do you think? What do you think this year's defense?
That was my point.
I think this can be. I think that's 17.5, and I'm not.
Cool.
Telling people to bet on the
at least make some money, guys.
Yeah, the 17.5 may be a gift.
Yeah.
I said bet on the game.
I just think it's way too many points. Listen, Castellanos, and this is a kid that FSU wanted and recruited at one point. he's special. And listen, he's a way better athlete than the kid at Georgia Tech. If he gets a couple seams, the band's gonna be playing for BC. I mean, this kid can change the game on one play. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be another one of these that's going to go the fourth quarter, and FSU's going to have to fight to win the game. They could win by 10, maybe 13, but I don't see 17 and a half.
No way.
Yeah, you gotta hope home field advantage gets you through on that, right? I mean, Boston College come in. We'll see, but I think it's a lot closer game than 17 points based off what we saw on Saturday. I mean, that's the only thing we have to go off of. All right, so doubling down on the underfish. Last week, we did our Fact or Fiction article. Will FSU win 10 regular season games or more in 2024? I was the only one on our staff that took the under. Everybody else had them taking 10 or more. I had them at 9-3 with a bigger margin of error on either side of that than I had last year. Last year, I said it was +1 or to either side. Either they were going. I think I had them 11-1, so I think I had 9-10-2 at worst, whatever. But my point is, after seeing this game, I don't think they're getting to the 9 mark. I actually think that if they got 8 wins based off what we saw Saturday, it would be a nice year for Florida State, this particular football team. What do you guys think? After we'll have this conversation every week. We'll reset our expectations for this football team. I said in my article that I think I'd take 8-4 and out the door right now based on Saturday's performance at Georgia Tech. What say you, JP?
I would have to say I would lean more towards that than the 11 wins or 10 wins. Absolutely. You don't want to. The first games are horrible to judge on. In the NFL and in college, they're really difficult. In this particular, and I'm not making excuses, but
I get you.
Flying over there, heavily favored against a team that was bringing back 16 starters, and they showed great continuity and really looked like a well-seasoned team that had been together and was playing for a purpose, something bigger than themselves. And FSU clearly did not look like that team. They looked like they had a lot of first game jitters. A lot of guys that haven't been on a big stage before did not perform well. I think they're better players than that. I really do. I think I have a lot of confidence in Norvell and his staff. I think they'll turn this around, but I'm just not sure with the guys we put on the field this week. And I think to Fish's point, and your point, Pat, we got to play younger guys that have more upside. And I don't know how that works in the world of NIL. You're paying guys big. Are they going to start and play the entire game? I know this. Both of those defensive ends should not be playing 65 snaps. No way, especially with what's coming at them, because everybody saw the tape. And so you've got to get guys in there and rotate in a fashion that best performs on the field. I don't know how that works in NIL. So there's a lot of changes that need to be made. These coaches will make them, hopefully. It doesn't matter what guys are getting paid and you have to just go forward with that. So I think they'll be better than they showed on both sides of the ball. But still, there's a lot of games in there that are going to be difficult with teams that can run the football.
I'm going to wait to see what happens this week against BC.
You can't do. That's not what Takeaway Tuesday is about.
Listen,
are they above 9.5?
I don't think they're going to get to 10 wins. The margin of error now. They losing to Georgia Tech. Now you're going to say they got to beat Miami, they got to beat Clemson, they got to beat Notre Dame. They're going to lose one of those games, and now one of the teams that they beat the last couple years that you just have a bad weekend. Can they get over that if they have a performance like BC? I just think it's going to be tough. I think 9 wins is the ceiling. Now I will say this: if they get 9-22 off the field, and Hakeem Williams lives up to his potential and is healthy, and they need him. I really think Hakeem is a really big factor in FSU success because he's a big kid that can run. You can't just line anybody up on that kid. If he's going, he can move. They need a big receiver on the outside that could stretch the field.
This is what I love about Takeaway Tuesday, because next Tuesday, if they beat Boston College 50-10, I may have them in the college football playoff. So that's just a great thing.
I don't know, man. You're not a real positive dude, so I don't know.
This is the great thing about college football.
So now it's knee-jerk reaction Tuesday. So
That's right. That's part of Takeaway Tuesday. You reset your expectations after every Saturday. Yeah, that's
if they find a way to lose to BC, I don't want to be on your message board on Saturday night or Monday night, man. It'll be brutal. You'll have a lot of people ready to say this team's only going to win 3 or 4 games.
Listen, I have a disclaimer on Takeaway on the front of the article. It's a disclaimer that I'm going to change my mind.
Of course.
This team will give me the right to change my mind one way or the other. And Fish, how do you expect me to be overly positive after Saturday? I mean, come on.
I agree. I'm not a positive person. I mean, ask my wife. I'm not a positive person. It's hard, but I'm not going to go. I really thought this Georgia Tech game was a horrible idea. Like going over.
It was a bad setup.
JPC Tampa go over to England to play it's just not
different.
A good.
It's way different.
And now you're telling college kids, listen, even though
way different,
even though it's FSU could hop. I mean, it's just I don't want to make excuses, but it is a tough situation, especially when you think Georgia Tech finished the year very strong. They're
better than people think.
They had very few guys that did not come back. I mean, that's a very experienced offense. They have their quarterback that came back. I mean, FSU was bringing overseas a new quarterback, a new running back, new receivers, some question marks on the O-line. It's a lot to ask to go over there and play a perfect game when you don't have guys that have played together. It does mean something.
Yep.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
All right, so let's put that to bed. We're looking forward to BC. Georgia Tech is done. We've all said what we had to say, and I'm sure we'll continue to say it. But we've all said so. I think we're all. Listen, I know a lot of people just want to talk Florida State. I love college football in its totality. I know you do, JP. I know you do, Fish. So let's talk a little bit about this week. We finally got a full slate of games. I've earmarked some games, but I'm gonna ask you guys. I think that the game we're all looking forward to seeing is Florida Miami. Am I right?
Of course, yes.
All right, so that is the big game.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of Florida State opponents that are going to play this weekend, obviously. But I just want to kind of go through Thursday's games, get your thoughts. There's 2 marquee games on Thursday. You got North Carolina going to Minnesota and playing the row your boat guys.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you guys have? What do you think of Matt Brown getting it done without a first-round draft pick at quarterback? You got Brad Johnson's son splitting time, I think, with another guy. I think they're going to play 2, according to Mac. Who you guys like in the University of North Carolina versus Minnesota game?
I'll go Minnesota, playing at home. New quarterback. Brad's going to kill me on this. New quarterback breaking in at North Carolina, so I think Minnesota's probably. I played the home teams in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think Minnesota's going to beat them. I'm not sold on North Carolina. I mean, they couldn't win with 2 NFL quarterbacks the last few years, and it's not a knock on Brad's kid, but he's not at that same level. And I think Mac Brown's done. I think he should have retired after last season. So I'm going to take Minnesota if they're at home. So
I heard Mac Brown say at the ACC media days this was going to be a better football team because he didn't have an NFL draft eligible quarter or a high draft pick. So I don't think they're going to overcome the loss of Drake May, and I think they're going to surprise Minnesota. Plus, I'm never going to – I know you love PJ Fleck, Fish. I know you love him. I don't. So I think he's a snake oil salesman. So I'm going with North Carolina. All right, so one of my favorite rivalries, which has been renewed, Penn State at West Virginia. That's Saturday. That's a Saturday game. Penn State at West Virginia. It's going to be I think it's going to be a great game. It's a great rivalry. West Virginia is a fun place to play. Not so much if you're the opponent, because they like to throw batteries and snowballs.
Good luck getting a ticket there. Tickets starting at $245 for that game at Mountaineer Field. That's going to be one hell of a game in terms of the fan interaction. Now that they've renewed that, Penn State usually starts strong, so maybe I'll just go with Penn State early in the season. It's not time for them to fold yet.
What you got, Fish?
Yeah, I like Penn State. I mean, they got 2 of the best running backs, in college football. They're big up front. They got one of the best defensive ends in college football, Abdul Carter. That number 11 is going to shine. They've got that guy, that we're talking about a DN that in Carter that just 6'3", 200 and what is he, 260, 70 pounds that could set that edge, and he's impressive. I think Franklin's got his best team since he's been at Penn State, and with the expanded playoffs, I expect them to be in the playoffs this year. So I like them.
All right. I forgot one Thursday game. I was going to save it for last, but it is a Thursday game, so I'm going to go back to it. Colorado.
North Dakota State.
Colorado, North Dakota State.
North Dakota State.
I'm going North Dakota State. Listen, this is going to be crazy. Like
when he loses, he's not taking any questions after the game from anybody. Shut up, everybody.
He's already told the Denver News reporter that he can't ask any questions, so he can be there. He's also said that people that weren't behind him when they were 4-8 don't need to be talking about, don't need to be jumping on the bandwagon when they bring home the hardware later this year. I did not know the Big 12 gave out a trophy for last place. And it seems that the only thing that's bigger than Deion's mouth are his ears.
Yeah.
Because he hears everything.
Rabbit ears. Listen, somebody, I think it was Bianchi who wrote in Orlando's paper, and it was so absolutely apropos, and he knows because he covered him for a long time. And Bobby used to, and Bianchi was unmerciful on Bobby at times. But Bobby, he knew how to play the game. Deion learned nothing from Bobby Bowden on so many levels. You want to go to war with the media, you're barking up the wrong. It's a very bad idea and so disrespectful. And a lot of media members don't deserve respect. I will say that, but the things that they've done are not egregious. It's called criticism, Deion. And when you're 4-8, you're going to get criticized. Get used to it. Put your big boy pants on and take it like you should. But he's not capable of doing that.
Oh, he's already, Feinbaum got after him yesterday. He's already said that he was not going to do Feinbaum.
He's going to run out of people to talk to.
Wait a second.
He was not going to respond to anything Feinbaum has to say. Then gives a paragraph answer responding to Feinbaum. Listen, this was never. I've told you guys when this happened, when he got hired, it was never going to.
Yeah, it's not working.
I think Pat's not working anymore. I think he got froze.
Did he leave us? Oh.
Yeah, Pat froze up there.
All right, Georgia Clemson, Fish. What do you got?
I'm back.
Saturday.
Georgia. I think Georgia's the best team in college football. And I know everybody's saying Ohio State, but Georgia's got Carson Beck, who's going to be a first-round pick. That team's loaded on the O-line. I think Kirby's got a special team this year, and I expect them to handle Clemson. I think this game could get kind of out of hand, to be honest with you.
Sorry, I took over host duties there for a second.
That's fine. I agree with you guys. I think Georgia's going to speed right past them.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what Clemson has, quite frankly, but I don't think they have enough to stick with Georgia. That's for damn sure.
Notre Dame, TAMU, Texas A&M. Who you guys got?
I got Notre Dame. I just don't think I think A&M's lost way too many pieces. It's going to take a while for Elko to turn that program around. They do have a stud at quarterback. I think their quarterback's one of the best in the country, but it's going to be a rough hoe this year, I think, for A&M. I think it starts with Notre Dame beating them.
110,000 say otherwise. My friend, it's going to be a raucous Kyle Field, but I think Notre Dame wins the game. Absolutely. Unfortunately, the 110,000 can't play offense and defense.
They didn't help Jimbo.
Yeah,
those 110,000.
They do. Have.
You got to have them on your side. That's the key, Fish. They got to like you.
I guess so.
They do have the L leaders.
Yeah.
They do.
They do have the L leaders.
Until they get rid of those guys, they're never winning. I mean, like
I totally agree.
You're cursed with that group.
I look forward to some disturbing videos from the Yell leaders during the course of the year on the Twitter machine.
If we can get the leprechaun over near the Yell leaders, we could come up with there's going to be some great TikTok videos out of that. That's for damn sure.
Yeah,
Lord knows where that might go. Lord knows where that might go.
Yeah, that I don't think we want to see that, JP. But now my mental picture of the rest of the day is going to be shot. All right, so LSU, USC on Monday night. I think it's at. What is it at? Is it at? I don't know where the game's at. Anyway,
schedule right here. Damn, wow, there's a lot of freaking games.
I'm
That's
not
Sunday.
sure.
That's Sunday night at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, baby.
Okay.
So I think USC was a pretender with Caleb Williams. Without him, what are they? I like LSU.
Wow, I'm going the total opposite. I think that Lincoln will be able to get back to having an offense that listen. Caleb's a stud, but I think Lincoln allowed him to get away with a lot. I think he's going to go back to the run game. You're going to see this team. I think they're going to upset LSU. That's my prediction. So.
I'm going with Fish. You lose Jaden Daniels. You lose the wide receiver that went to the New York Giants. Everybody's talking bad about USC. We'll see. I mean, Lincoln didn't forget how to coach. Now, I think he's got a new defensive coordinator in there, so we'll see. But I'm going to go with USC in the opener. And then, of course, the last game we're going to pick is Florida versus Miami. Now, guys, remember that Mario Cristobal has just announced the addition of a game and clock management coach. Could be a difference maker in this ball game, especially if it's tight. What do you got? It's in the swamp, 3:30.
Interesting to note, this is one of those games that's going to be just ridiculously loud. And, I think both quarterbacks had a hard time in that stadium in Ireland hearing the calls. So I think it's, NFL stadiums are just not as loud as college stadiums. The Florida field's going to be up for grabs. It's interesting how teams are going to play just all over, not just in this game. But this is a weird game for Miami. They've got a lot of new as well. I think they're more talented than Florida, incredibly. But Florida, I just have a weird feeling about this thing. I think the Gators win.
Yeah, Fish. I think we saw last week an O-line, D-line. I think Miami's got the best O-line, D-line in the ACC. I think Damian Martinez, a lot of people don't know him. They're going to find out about him real quick. I see this game very similar to when Mario took Oregon to Ohio State and just whipped them with the run game and just mauled them. Florida does not have a good D-line. They got big, fat guys at D-tackle, and they got two of the same guys. They don't have a lot of athleticism. I think this game is going to get out of hand in the second half just because Miami's going to wear them out. And I've seen them practice 4 times. Cam Ward's the real deal. I can see why Mike Norvell really went after him. He is a difference maker. He really is.
Agreed.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this. Everything I've heard about Cam Ward from you, from Mark Richt has talked about him at length before. Kevin Carter saw him practice, was very impressed. He also thinks this is a much improved Florida team, particularly with what they did in the portal. Their average portal ranking was higher than Miami's average portal ranking, even though Miami got all the love from the media on how well they did in the portal, but the average player portal ranking for Florida was higher than Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I think Swamp's a very difficult place to play. So I'm going to go with the upset. It's a 2.5-point spread. I'm going Florida. Right. I'm going Florida, and everybody's. I think Napier's a better coach than Cristobal.
Believe in Graham Mertz.
I think he's got the Wisconsin tag, and how he went to Wisconsin. He can't throw. All he can do is hand the ball off.
Don't get Pat going on Graham Mertz. That's his stepson.
Oh, come on! I just think he got branded as a handoff quarterback because he played at Wisconsin, and I think because we had Hornibrook here at Florida State, he didn't turn out. I think every Florida State, and plus we're talking about Florida, right? So we know there's a Florida State bias. But the kid, I think they tracked him at 22 miles an hour in practice. So it's not like he's not an athlete. I mean, they clocked him at 22 miles an hour in practice. And we hear all the time from this crew about how fast and strong and explosive they are. So it does matter that you're fast and explosive. But anyway, I think the more interesting question is how many people are arrested in tailgates before the game between Florida and Miami fans.
I think will it be over or under the number of people that die of heat exhaustion in the stands?
When is that game? What time's that game?
3:30.
3:30. 3:30. They'll be out drinking at the tailgates, and then they'll go into the hot stadium. I think last time they did one of these games, that there was about 150 people that were in the infirmary or whatever the hell you call it there.
They're not doing them people any favors.
No, it's an awful time for that game.
All right, guys, we went a little bit longer than I thought, so we'll cut it short here. We were going to pick conference championship games, but I don't.
We'll do that next week. That's
we'll do that next week after we have an idea of what these teams look like. But listen, we will be back tomorrow. I think it'll be Bob and Kurt talking about Mike Norvell's press conference after their team has returned. They're practicing today. It was closed. We will get to see practice tomorrow and Thursday, I believe. But Mike will have his press conference as well as his coordinators, so we will get more up-to-date information on what they saw on film, what they're concerned about, what they're positive about going into the second game of the season. If you're not an Osceola subscriber, please go to theosceola.com and check us out. We have a ton of post-Georgia Tech coverage, including Bob's column on some things to be optimistic about and pessimistic about coming out of that game. I've got Takeaway Tuesday, and obviously we'll have full coverage tomorrow on the press conference. And obviously, if you are not a subscriber to the Osceola YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button before you leave and the notification button so that you get updates on when we're going to do live and tape shows. And our plan right now is for myself, JP, and Fish to be with you every Tuesday at 3. They do have some schedule conflicts from time to time, so they may not join us every week, but that is our plan. And I see Tally in the background getting up from a nap, JP.
She's ready to go.
Yeah, so is mine
all day. It's time to go play ball.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us. And for our viewers and listeners, thanks for listening and watching us. And we'll be back next Tuesday for more Takeaway Tuesdays and more Florida State football talk. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Take it easy, guys.